Well, hello again and welcome to Tuesday Chat. And now, unfortunately, I'm stuck behind my frying pan and flour and eggs and everything here as I need to get these pancakes made. From this place, we'll just give a warm welcome to today's guests on Tuesday Chat. It's Gearoid and Jenny, so a warm welcome to you.
Hello, everybody.
Maybe speak up there so we can see you.
We're ready for pancakes as well.
You're ready for pancakes. With a frying pan each there, it nearly looks like you're ready to hit each other or something.
I know it's a non-violence household here.
Good. That's what I like. Well, listen, I'll get my frying pan and everything out of the way as well. And as you can see, we've gone to great expense this week and got a whole new set for Tuesday Chat. Not that old cardboard sign anymore, so here we are. But anyway, it's not about me. It's great to welcome Gearoid and Jenny. We're delighted that you're sharing with us. Maybe they're in Cloughjordan, and we'll be hearing about more in a moment. But maybe tell us each something of your background, where you were born and grew up, and from each of you. So.
You want to start?
Yeah, well, I suppose I'm North Tipperary, born and bred. I grew up in Thurlestown. I suppose I moved abroad then when I got older, came back. Lived in Dublin there for about 20 years, went to college there, and then moved to Cloughjordan about 14 years ago now. So my main connection with Cloughjordan is my grandmother grew up on Main Street. So my family history goes back here hundreds of years in Cloughjordan and Borskane.
Thank you, Gearoid. And Jenny, what about you?
I grew up in East Galway, just outside Ballinasloe, kind of somewhere between. We were halfway between you're from the country and you're from the town. We were about a mile and a half from the town. I grew up in a small farm, and I moved here to Cloughjordan 14 years ago from up the Gearoid in County Galway, and before that I had no knowledge of Cloughjordan. I knew Nina, I'd have relations in Nina, so I was used to going to Nina from Ballinasloe, but through Barsacane, but Cloughjordan was unknown to me until about 15 years ago.
Super, great. Well, that was that close to the time, when you say 15 years ago, was that close to the time you met, or where did you meet?
We met here in Cloughjordan.
Right. So you'd already moved here, Jenny, or?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. We both moved here. We both moved here to get involved in the eco-village community, to build a home, and we were introduced to each other here then, and we started a relationship here. So we're one of the I suppose we just passed Valentine's Day, so it's a good time to have a little romance story, but we're one of the romance stories that came out of the eco-village coming to Cloughjordan. But yeah, that's how we met here.
That's great. And of course you got married in the Methodist Church. I don't think either of you from a Methodist background, but when did you get married in the Methodist Church?
Do you want to start? You start, yeah.
Yeah, I suppose for both of us, it ultimately was a very personal decision. I suppose the faith-based spiritual aspect to getting married was always very important. Background-wise, I suppose my background is as a theology graduate. I would have been very active in my own church, Roman Catholic Church, both at home and in Dublin for many, many years. So I think it was a fact we wanted a kind of a spiritual side to our wedding celebration. We didn't just want a registry office, and then we thought, where might that happen? And when we found out then that the Methodist community in Cloughjordan, the Methodist Church, welcomed people from other faith perspectives. We're open to people that want to have a Christian experience. So we knew that door was open. Then we made contact. Shannon was the minister at the time.
Yeah.
She was so vibrant, so positive, so so passionate about what she believed in, that she was just such a wonderful draw to meet. And we knew and know so many people locally who are in the Methodist community. We're in local groups with them, the development community or choirs or tidy towns, and very sincere, committed, inspiring group of people. So it was a very I think one of the things that attracted me personally was the simplicity of the building of the ceremony, and I really liked that, just that kind of smallness, that simplicity, and that the focus would be on us, on our wedding, and in this lovely, beautiful kind of simple kind of building. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, a big connection I had when I came here was the Cloughjordan Community Choir, and I had always loved singing. And when I moved here, I used to get a babysitter to go to choir on Thursdays, and that's where I met John Armitage. And John's first wife, Anne, was so friendly and welcoming. They were really friendly family. And I think through the community choir, I saw a mixture of people from all the churches locally and no churches coming together to, to sing together for a sense of praise and connection and faith. And for church events and for non-church events, it was a really strong representative community choir. And I knew then, I knew that that the Methodist community was the right fit for us. It kind of made sense from the relationships we've been building.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, and no, so yeah, maybe just follow on from Shannon. So when we contacted Shannon, I mean, for me, it was also she was also a woman, and when the way she used to speak for services was just fantastic. She's very passionate, and she was upset for us and upset for herself because she was taking her month off to go. Do you remember she was going back to the States? So she wasn't available. And then it was also how Dennis Sands stepped in then. It was because of the connection with music as well. So Dennis had retired here locally. And then I had met Dennis through singing through a workshop I had organized. And Dennis used to be very involved in music when he was in Clifton and other places. So then Dennis stepped in, and Dennis re-registered, and he married us in the church, and we had John there for music, and then some of the local ladies did the flowers, and it was a really lovely local celebration.
And the setup that was laid on the day was just beautiful, and I think a little bit too, it kind of suited us. There was a bit of organizing around it, and I think that probably maybe suits both our personalities a bit, where we don't quite want to do things just purely the normal way, I guess, or something.
Great. And a lot of what you're saying there is reflecting on the community that is Cloughjordan. What brought you to Cloughjordan? I mean, you mentioned the Eco Village, and do you have any reflections on what you valued in coming to Cloughjordan?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. I suppose because we both came from different directions, you came from the east and I came from the west. But I was living very rural at the time. Like we were, down at Boreen, 5 miles from a local shop, from the local primary school. I had a child in the local primary school in near Uptherard. And for me, a big motivation when I saw that the Eco Village was being developed here in North Tipperary, I was like, okay, that the simple things of being able to walk for a child to be able to walk to primary school, be able to walk to the shop, to to be able to walk safely around without having to drive everywhere, for the basics. That was a big draw for me. But then kind of equally what was important was that I know I would not have got involved in an eco-village project if it had only been a standalone, once-off development, out in the middle of nowhere.
Mhm.
It was the fact that it was attached to an existing rural community that attracted me, because
Right.
because I like a lot of the values that come with the eco-village, but I equally like the values that come with rural community and small community, so so that was really important to me, that it was based in a rural community, an existing and older community. So in a way, that felt to me that would take away and dissolve a bit of the intensity, because there's more going on here than just where we live. It's not just there's the eco-village community, there's your community, there's many communities going on. So we built in a community, but we're part of a larger, greater Cloughjordan community.
Yeah.
Do you want to say anything for yourself, coming from Dublin?
Yeah, I think I lived in Dublin for a long time. And Dublin was great fun in the early years. There was lots of gigs, there was lots of things to do. Like, city life can be, has a great buzz to it. I think as the years moved on, though, Dublin became more of a place where I kind of felt, well, I'm just waiting really to be someplace else. Quite what that was, I wasn't sure.
Right.
And then when the opportunity then kind of came up of this, eco neighborhood development in Cloughjordan, because I'm very interested in green things, very interested in the environment, and I thought I really liked that idea of, well, what would that be like if I was to make the move to there? It helped as well also that my son and his mother were also looking at moving to Cloughjordan, and we had always remained friends, so that also helped. Kind of completed, so that there was less of that sort of that was easier. It made the decision then a bit easier. So made the move to come here. When we came here, where we live now was just a big green field. So a lot of it was trying to visualize, well, what will it be like? So we built our house. We moved in the end of November 2011. And I suppose at the end of this year will be 10 years in the house, which sounds, wow, it just goes so fast.
Right. Yeah.
And I think one of the lovely things, I mean, I would not have been able to afford to, buy a house in Dublin or build a house outside Dublin. I think here we got the opportunity to build a really comfortable, I suppose, energy friendly house that's very personalized in terms of its construction, in terms of what we wanted and where we wanted it, and that just acts as a lovely home to live in. So and likewise what Jenny was saying, I really like the idea that we're an estate off Main Street. Cloughjordan is filled with life, and in a way my take, because I suppose I'm very involved in wider community initiatives, my take on Cloughjordan is, the history of Cloughjordan is the history of diversity and diverse groups accommodating with each other in a small space. I mean, all of Cloughjordan is an intentional community from the very start. And so in a way, I think the whole eco neighborhood as a relative homogenized new grouping, I think it just fitted into that slipstream that was already there within Cloughjordan as a vibrant, resilient, enterprising village. So
brilliant.
It was a good fit in that sense.
Do you want to just briefly mention some of the groups that, well, you're each involved with locally here?
Well, I'm very involved. I'm chair of the Community Development Committee, very involved with that, and I suppose that developing local walks in Knocknacree and Sopwell Scahaboy has been something that have led on over the years, working with other local people and state agencies. Do you want to say more?
I suppose I should.
Jordan Stone.
Well, obviously the Jordan Stone is a great story and the community group trip that we took to Jordan in October 2019 was just absolutely fantastic, with some very great representatives of people and backgrounds on that. So
I yes, and actually we just acknowledged in the service the other day. I happened to be speaking about the River Jordan from our Bible readings on Sunday, and actually it just so happened Gillian Armitage was involved in doing a reading in the service as well. So, who was on the trip to Jordan a year and a half ago.
Yeah, actually, Stephen, Gillian was there when we actually got down to the River Jordan, from the Jordanian side, and the Israeli side is, opposite. And a few of us sang together then down there. And it was just beautiful. It was really, and I remember Gillian being there. It was fantastic.
Great, because it was only during the recording of the service that it dawned on me, and I thought to myself, oh, I should have asked Gillian more about that beforehand.
And actually, it's probably worth saying now that I think because of the restrictions that have come with COVID and no foreign travel, I think those of us, was there 28 of us, was it?
28, yeah.
Yeah, 28 people went locally, and there's a good number of us around here, as in living locally here, who were on that trip. And anytime we've met each other over the last 12 months, we've all been saying, I'm so glad we went to Jordan in in October 2019, because it's like a wellspring, or it's fed us for the last 12 months when there's been no international travel, and we have those experiences and memories to work off.
And it was a big deal. I mean, that was the furthest I've ever flown in my life.
Okay.
I'm not an easy flyer, so it was so getting there was an act of faith. In a way, but but the history and the people and the sites we visited, like we went to Mount Nebo, where Moses is reputed to be, traditionally it's where he's said to be buried.
Okay.
And standing at the edge, looking out across the what is called the Promised Land, and seeing the Jericho and seeing all these cities far across the plain was just very moving. And going to the Jordan River and getting into the water, or passing by the place where, if I'm correct now, where Elijah ascended. Am I right, Stephen, in that?
Yeah, don't ask me too many things on the spot.
No, it's varied, but varied from, I suppose, because
you're right.
Because I suppose faith tradition has always been a big part of my life. So going to these places where the faith meets a real place, meets a reality, a tangible reality, was very moving and very special. Yeah, really, I mean, I look forward to going back, hopefully in the not too distant future, please God.
I remember, can I say one thing about that, I remember reflecting when we were there, and a good few of us we were talking about this, that our parents' generation, and particularly our grandparents' generation, they grew up with the stories and with the Bible themselves, and they knew all those same stories that we have. But the idea then that 1 and 2 generations later we could get a chance to go to that land, I kept feeling when I was there how much things have changed in a couple of generations for Irish families, but also how delighted and the opportunity for us to be there, and that you could be there on their behalf in some ways, and we're only here today because of the sacrifices they've made in their pasts. So it was a kind of a real sense of appreciation. It was a big trip. It was it was lovely.
Super. Well, sorry, we should acknowledge, maybe for people tuning in from elsewhere, that I mean, it doesn't take somebody who's ignorant of the Irish language like me to work out the name Cloughjordan. So it's believed that a stone was brought from the River Jordan, and that's where Cloughjordan got its name. Is that?
Yeah, there was I suppose there's a written tradition that the original Anglo-Norman manorial settlement where Cloughjordan House is today, the Damarisco knight, one of the Damariscos, went to the Holy Land, obviously not on holidays probably back then, and came back, but brought back a stone from the River Jordan and used it then put it into the castle, use it, I think, in some parts of the castle, sort of a memento piece. So that's always been there as a written story. So I think there was enough, it was accepted enough to maybe explore it a bit further. And then in making contact with the Jordanian authorities, teasing out the idea, I think that generated a lot of interest. And then when we had the Jordanian authorities then sourced a stone from the River Jordan that was sent back to Ireland. It came over on the Irish government jet part of the way to here, and then was brought down to Cloughjordan. We had the ambassadors and honorary consuls and council and lots of representatives. Really good gathering, several hundred people on Main Street for the handing over of this friendship stone, Jordan.
Yeah.
And I think what drove me particularly, you know, this, Stephen, was, and in the trip to Jordan, was that particularly under those Trump years and before him, all that language of the other and the, you know, fear of the other, and the other is coming and going to take something from you. And there's that climate of fear being generated as a political mechanism. So I think I felt very strongly, well, our trip, we're going there out of cultural curiosity. We're going there with a spirit of openness and sharing and cultural contact. So I thought we were going there for we're like making our own stand in a way against that kind of political climate.
Great. Super. That's brilliant. Well, maybe just returning to the eco village itself and the community, and I suppose possibly you for who you both are was the prompt, but your chairing of the development group sort of was certainly a prompt for me, just even on this interview. What about your role there, and what about the eco village, and how could the eco village be upheld as something very valuable in today's society and world with the climate emergency that we have? Have you any reflections on the eco village's value today and the issues that maybe locally we can be a part of in today's world and going forward?
Do you want to start? No. Yeah, I think I suppose probably what I might kind of say back on that is, I'm not sure the eco village is you know, is set up to exemplify anything. I think like it's still a young development, and people are still getting used to each other, and it's you know, it's a lot of people with a lot of dreams and a lot of you know, in a small place. So I think there is a lot yet to be worked out. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of work to do here, just getting our estate finished. Yeah. First, and getting the practical things done, and then start building the actual community of people. Then further developing that. And the idea of a group of people trying to live more sustainably with a lower footprint in terms of how much of the earth's resource they consume is a great idea. And I think it's you know, there's nothing wrong with the idea being replicated, or people trying to replicate it in their lives wherever they live, looking at their what they consume, what they buy, their ethical shopping, sustainable living. I think I would say in terms of the big conservation projects around Cloughjordan, probably the biggest one is the Raised Bog Restoration Project at Scahaboy, which is one of Ireland's leading community-supported climate action and biodiversity projects. Yeah. You know, and it's an excellent example of how state agencies and community group can collaborate effectively in delivering on this huge national objective that's really important in the international world. But then the core of that was driven by ordinary people living locally, who just who knew the bog, spent years growing up beside the bog or on the bog, and they had a love for the place, and they were really happy to see it preserved for future generations as it is. So I mean, the conservation program at Scahaboy today wouldn't be there without people in tidy towns and the heritage group and a lot of people who live locally giving their support to, with all the conversations that help make it all happen.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add to that, Gearoid, is, and just on listening to you is just, I'm reflecting myself, just taking the couple of minutes to reflect. And like 15 years ago, say in the Eco Village, we have a charter, an ecological charter. So when you become a member, you sign up to that. So you make some firm agreements around the materials you'll use in your home, that you won't use pesticides in your own garden or in your allotment, that you will create, you don't put up walls as boundaries, you put up hedges. So because wildlife is free to move through as opposed to a concrete wall, just as as an example. And then the ratings, the BR ratings for the houses, the aims then were like for B1s and A2s, so really high ratings. 15 years later, if you go and look at, the BR ratings for new builds across the country, and all the local authorities have brought it in, they all all new houses have to have some form of renewable energy. So be it rain, we have rainwater harvesting here.
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, that was a little bit radical. But those things are starting to become more normalized now, or more, we can understand the benefits. What rainwater harvesting makes complete sense in Ireland. If we can have, if we can have access to locally grown food, it doesn't have to be just grown in the Eco Village, grown anywhere. It's not. So what I'd love to see, and is, talk to me in another 15 years, I'd love to see, in a way, the Eco Village being nearly irrelevant in 15 years' time, because what the ideals that we had 15 years ago, 30 years later, they're normal practices.
Yeah.
That the practices become normalized, and in a way, then it just blends in. So that's my aim for it, rather than that it stays as a separate, idealism that's elevated into a position, because I don't think that's really
right. Yeah.
If we want kind of some of these ideas to be actually human beliefs and ideas that the general population agree on, because climate change affects every one of us. It's so that that's
no, that's wonderful. I appreciate hearing that, and that's a beautiful that natural understanding of living it out.
And it's a bit like it is some of the foundations of community development as well, is that in a way, if you deliver what your aim for, which in community development your aims, if you deliver your aims, you should become irrelevant. In the same, in any kind of support work, like I've worked in family support, the idea is that you work with the family and then you become irrelevant, because the family learn how to stand on their own 2 feet. They don't need external supports, but at a time. So I think, something about becoming, irrelevant and dissolving the specialness, the specialness and the elevated position. That would be something I'd see as important.
Brilliant.
Actually, something just thoughts comes to me I'd add in is about, I suppose in a way I suppose people then are looking to find ways to manage maybe whatever frustrations they have around what the limits of human action are, the limits of personal action are. So maybe going back to that, where does belief and faith maybe play a role in trying to realize your dreams? And I suppose personally, I feel quite comfortable taking a more long view of going, well, here we live here today. In 10 years' time, things will be different, hopefully for the better. And I feel comfortable investing in that future with hope, and put my efforts into that. But I do think there are other people, I've neighbors who I think struggle with the idea that they have to change the world now or in the next 5 years with their own endeavor. And I think I think I can see where personal frustrations build up. Because it is hard to change the world. And I think if I'll go back to something Jenny said there about referencing the Pauline principle, which has always been made a lot of sense to me, in that, you know, one person sows the seed, another person does the watering, and God does the reaping.
Yeah.
And that idea of being able to do our bit
Yeah.
as well as we possibly can, and then let go and trust.
Super. Great. Thank you. Very good. Gearoid, thank you. No, unfortunately, we're out of time here, but I just finally, I did notice you on your Facebook, you on the night it was supposed to snow in this area, and did a bit, maybe not as much as somewhere else. When I would just appreciate being tucked up in my bed, you were mad enough to get out in a bit of a tent and camp the night in the woods. I mean, what provokes you to do that?
I love it.
Yeah.
It's I think I've always loved the natural world. I grew up with the River Suir behind my house on the edge of Thurles. So I just spent all my years wandering the banks, exploring, loving nature, loving wildlife. I think there's an intimacy. Nature brings an intimacy, and I think as the more I think our society has become more urbanized, I think there's a disconnection happening with our natural world. So to me, it's a very personal thing to be able to go out, the opportunity to go camping. I love winter camping. I've got really good gear, and have that time alone, a solitude. I feel it's quite a spiritual time, just being out in the elements. And I think also, you know, with our local, like our Knocknatree Woods, Scahaboy Bog, Sapple, to have these beautiful nature places for people to go and just spend time in.
Yeah.
I think something I meet regularly, or I hear regularly come from people talk about Knocknatree or Scahaboy, is that it's great for it clears their head. It's great for their, it really lifts their spirit. It's just lovely being out there. And I think I think being out in nature is healthy and healing. And you know, I'll go back to Elijah again. And I suppose I always thought, you know, when Elijah went out into the desert or up to the mountain, you know, there was storms, there was tempest, and he didn't recognize God in these things. But when everything died down, he heard God's voice in a whisper. And I think for him, it was the quietness, not the big loud clashing of drums and cymbals, but the quietness is where where God can be met. And I think camping for me, as well as a nice adventure activity, that it's a place too where I find I get a spiritual reward out of as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, it resonates with me so much. Not the camping out in the cold, and I'm pretty sure Jenny wasn't joining you in that.
No, but I was, Stephen, you know, I will say I was very very happy that Gearoid was happy to do it, you know, and for real, like, 'cause some friends of mine would say, would you not be worried? Would you not be? Do you not think he's a bit mad? And I was going, no, because I know his experience in the outdoors. I know he has good gear, and I know it's really good for his well-being, and a sense of freedom you can get from that kind of being able to survive and get the quietness. So I'm really happy for him that he's in his element doing it. And then I get the house to myself for the night.
Well, listen, it does resonate with me. I mean, it's just what you said there. And maybe there's a great way to finish it. Really appreciate your time, your insights, and all that you've shared today. I'm going to get back to my making my pancakes. We'll let you do that, and probably there's others enjoying their pancakes while they've been listening on this. So thank you very much
for inviting us.
Thanks, Stephen. It's lovely to be invited. Thanks very much.
Yeah, take care.